Did you know that the Friendship Star Quilt Block is not only beautiful, but also symbolizes the bonds of friendship? The Friendship Star Quilt Block has a history that goes all the way back to American settlers. Friendship Star quilts were often made for women about to embark on a pioneer journey. Friends that she was going to leave behind would often make this simple star block and then embroider their name in the center of the block. The star blocks would all come together into a quilt, and then the friends would give the quilt to their friend before she embarked on her journey west. My name is Fallon, and in this video we are going to make this Friendship Star block together step by step. This tutorial will be perfect for anyone new to quilting, but it will also be fun for an experienced quilter as well, because it is always fun to make a Friendship Star quilt block together with friends. All right, so let's first take a look at all the materials needed to bring just one Friendship Star quilt block together. You will need two 5-inch squares using a background fabric. You will need two 5-inch squares using print fabric. For the center of the star, you are going to need one 4.5-inch square using a print fabric. And then for the corners of this star block, you will need four 4.5-inch square using the background fabric. You are also going to, of course, need some basic sewing supplies like a rotary cutter, a cutting mat, rulers, and of course a sewing machine. Now, something that will make constructing this Friendship Star block an absolute breeze for you will be if you have some sort of half square triangle trim tool. There are so many different options out there for half square triangle trimming tools, and I actually put together a video where I used a lot of different trim tools and shared the pros and cons of each. I will link to that video in the description of this video if you're interested in watching it. Now, the first thing we will need is the two 5-inch background squares and the two 5-inch print squares, and we will be using those to make the four half square triangles we need to bring this block together. So the four half square triangles are located here, and I have my 5-inch squares. Now, the first thing we'll need to do is draw a line corner to corner on the wrong side of our lightest fabric, and for me that's the background fabric. So along the diagonal we're going to draw a line, and I'm just using a pencil here, corner to corner. All right, and now we are going to take a background fabric and a print fabric and place them right sides together. Line it up well. And then what we'll do is we'll sew a 1/4-inch seam along each side of that drawn line. And we'll do that on both of these. After sewing along each side, I like to give it a quick press just to even out the block a little bit. And then we're just going to cut right along the drawn line between the two sets of stitches. All right, and then we're just going to press these seams. I like to press toward the darker fabric. You really want to press these seams really well. It's going to help you in the long run bring this block together nicely. Now, after getting all of the half square triangles pressed, it's time to trim them all to 4.5 inches. I'm using a 4.5-inch trim lock here, and I have the diagonal line lined up on the seam. And now I'm just going to trim this down to size. At this time, taking the time to press your half square triangles really well and trimming them to 4.5 inches accurately will really help you bring this quilt block together with ease. Even if after you finish pressing your half square triangles and they're really close to 4.5 inches, I promise you that even that 1/8 of an inch could make your quilt block turn out a little bit wonky. After getting all of those half square triangles trimmed up to 4.5 inches, this is where the magic really happens, because you can start laying out your block and you see that beautiful Friendship Star Quilt Block pattern really start to come together. Now, something I like to do when I'm laying out the half square triangles, because that's the part that can really get tricky, the corner squares and the center block, that's easy. But the half square triangles, what I like to do is lay one down. I have all my half square triangles stacked up there. So all 4 of them. Pretend I didn't have this laid out. So I have them there and they're all situated the same way. And then I just bring it down so that I know they're all laying in the same direction. And that's what brings the star together. So that helps me make sure that I didn't accidentally turn one the wrong way, right? Because you could have one sitting that way and it looks like it's right because the printed fabric is meeting up with it, but you don't get that same effect. So for me, to make sure I have them situated in the right way, it really helps me to have them all stacked up, laying in the same orientation and bringing them out around the star. So hopefully that little tip helps you too. So I like to bring this block together in a net or a web, however you like to call it. And for me, I just find that a lot easier to make sure I keep the correct position of all the squares in this block. Now, if you prefer, you could sew one row together at a time, however you like to do it. That is completely fine. This is just how it makes sense to me. So to do that, I take the first 2 squares in the block in the first row and I place them right sides together and sew a 1/4 inch seam. And then I don't cut the threads here. I keep sewing the next 2 blocks or 2 squares in the next row. So I'll take the next 2, lay them right sides together, and sew a 1/4 inch seam. And then you guessed it, I'm going to take the next 2 in the third row, place them right sides together, and sew a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, and you see they're all connected together here, and I'm going to start finger pressing just to get the seams laying the direction I would like. So for me, for the first row, I'm pressing toward the whole square here, not toward the half square triangle, because we'll get a lot of bulk through here with all the fabric. Here again, I'm going to press toward the center square and then out toward the corner square. And now we can just sew the final square in each row on. So I'm going to place them right sides together and sew a 1/4 inch seam across each row here. Something I didn't mention, and I definitely should have, is that you see that I'm not using pins here. I don't pin very often, but if you feel more comfortable placing some pins in here to hold this together really well while you sew, definitely do that. Okay, and so I'm going to press out toward this corner block, press in toward the center block, and then out. And now I'm going to press the seams with my iron to really set them nice and flat. Okay, and so how fun is that? All the threads that aren't cut there just hold everything together in the correct orientation for me so I can just sew the rows together and finish up this block. Before I sew it together though, it's always a good idea to put some eyes on it and make sure that the orientation of everything is correct and that things didn't get mixed up along the way. You'll have a lot less seams to rip out if you do that. Everything's looking good to me, so I'm gonna sew these rows together. Now our pressing was really important before because now we can nest these together. See how the seams are folded, pressed in opposite directions, so there's not a lot of bulk there. And then when you hold them with your fingers, if you want to put pins in, you can, but you can feel that the seams are matching up like a puzzle piece. So I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam across here. All right, so we have one side sewn and we just have one more. Again, I'm going to make sure that these are meeting up. You can feel those seams nesting together. Gets me excited because I know this block is coming together beautifully when they're matching up well like that. All right, so I'm gonna press these seams with my iron so it's nice and flat. All right, so the moment of truth is finally here. Your Friendship Star Block is now complete. Now, just a note for you, this quilt block is 12.5 inches unfinished and will be 12 inches finished. So tell me, are you inspired to make a whole quilt out of this block? I really love a one block quilt, and I think the Friendship Star Quilt Block would make a beautiful one block quilt. You could honestly make one of these blocks after you make another quilt and have some leftover scraps of fabric. Make this quilt block with some of those fabrics, and after you've made a bunch of quilts, you would have a beautiful Friendship Star quilt made with memories of all the past quilts you've made. I think that would just be so much fun. If you have enjoyed this quilt tutorial, I would love for you to like this video and leave me a comment about the quilt project you are currently working on. I would love to hear about it. Also, if you have time, I have a lot of other quilting tutorials on this channel that you could check out as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.